Welcome to day 2 of the week of Big Boys. If you are just tuning in, you will notice that my setup is different from my normal one. That's because the week of Big Boys is all about reviewing figures that won't fit into my lightbox normally. And this time my setup will be even differenter. Yeah, I've changed the room that I normally film in because last time I did this, it honestly took up so much space that it was hard to move around, and I was literally pressed up against the wall with the camera in my armpit, craning my head around to look at the viewfinder from a completely terrible angle. This time I have more space to maneuver, myself along with the camera. Today on the week of Big Boys, we are going to be talking about the MMC Assaultus. So, for those of you who are longtime veterans of my channel, you might have 3 separate reactions to this one. One of them would be, didn't you already do this for your 300 subscriber special? One of them will be, what are these? And the last one will be, finally, you're doing this! For those who aren't subscribed to me, or for most of those who are, considering the videos I've done on this set are some of the lowest viewed on my entire channel, I did a what's the best on this particular team before without taking into account their combined mode, as it's not a member of the team or an individual figure that you can just acquire. To sum up though, this is the best set of Combaticons on the market, and by far, one of my highest recommendations. Right up there with the Masterpiece Soundwave. Nothing else even approaches their accuracy. Other sets may have individual figures that are decent enough, like the Unique Toys Ragnaros has a pretty good Swindle and Brawl, and their Onslaught is passable, but their Blastoff and Vortex are terrible, and all 3 of their decent figures are crushed by the MMC's version of them. And you may be like, well, what about the Zeta Bruticon? That's basically perfect, right? 1, that thing is brutally inaccurate, and I don't understand how people don't notice it. And 2, the individual limbots are so horrendously inaccurate that no one can ignore it. Their Onslaught is pretty good, but it's still ground into the dust by this one. Sure, this one's got stubby legs, but that's really diminished just by extending the ankles. So yeah, nothing else touches this set in terms of show accuracy, and anyone who argues otherwise is cherry-picking information to justify their already made decision. The only ground people have to stand on is the scale is not uniform on these guys, and if that's the case for you and you just can't tolerate the most perfect-looking Combaticons on the market because they aren't all the same height, well then Shockwave and you would be eternal enemies because you are completely illogical. Also, Onslaught is always way bigger. But yes, for robot mode, this is an amazing set. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And it's so good that I keep my eyes on all the online stores, even though I already have them, just so that way I can post it every time they come back into stock on my Twitter, so my followers get the best chance of getting them if they want them. Anyways, on to the review we were supposed to be talking about. Starting out in vehicle mode, because I don't know of any combiners that don't all combine in their ult mode. Just a brief interlude, they all look amazing. Every last one of them is exactly like what they should be, and you will notice that I made good on my promise to put away Brawl's antenna and never look back. But on to combination. Damn, fastest I've ever gotten to what passes for a transformation in one of these videos. So you'd think, what with this being a combiner that has all the parts built in, that the combination process would be a pain in the ass with a lot of transformation steps. But it's actually way more fun and simple than you'd ever expect. Of the lot of them, Onslaught easily transforms the most, basically converting to an entirely new robot mode, though that's to be expected, this is the combiner core after all. Swindle does the least in conversion, but they actually all do more than you might expect. Brawl only does a little bit more, but it's in the arms where the complexity really goes up. It's not shockingly more complex, but whereas the other guys just make shins and feet, these guys make up the whole arm and fist, so it's obviously gotta be more complicated than the legs. And they do this incredibly smart thing with the fists, where they split in half at the middle, and they form back together, somehow maintaining a wrist swivel. The engineering of this whole process is brilliant. It's exquisite. It's one of the pinnacles of engineering I've ever seen, one of the pinnacles I can even imagine. And if you pardon me, once again, that's a big boy. It's not quite the size of the previous boy, but he's only about a head shorter, which, if I'm understanding correctly, puts him at about a head taller than the Combiner Wars Devastator. And that can partially be remedied by adding the shoes. I honestly got the upgrade kit for this guy exclusively for the gun, but I found the shoes to be a nice addition. Normally, I might dislike adding a parts forming piece to this, especially when it doesn't already have parts forming, but the shoes are really cool. They transform from these crates, so even when it's not in use, they aren't useless parts that you have to put away or hide from all your displays. Some people say that they are necessary to help you with stability, but either those people got a really bad QC issue, or they are just expecting it to be true, so that's what they experience. Because this figure is plenty stable without them. I just like the shoes because the feet look a little silly. I think they could have designed the feet to fold out a few more times and look longer, but you know what? That's a nitpick in the face of this beautiful thing. The shoes are actually quite thin on bottom, so they don't add as much height as you might be hoping. Honestly, the difference between now and before is so minimal that I can barely tell that he's taller at all. But I mean, the shoes just look cool, which is what I like about them. They give him longer toes and defined unique feet, just like how he has hands, though they are a much brighter color than the fists. Unfortunately, I don't really advise you to display this with the shoes on unless you have something soft to rest it on. Every inch of them is painted, and even a few seconds of sitting on a hard surface that's got the vibrations of you walking past it will scuff the shit out of them. On to the real reason that I got this upgrade set. The sick-ass gun, which folds up slightly to the point where I have to question why, other than Transformers. Because of the way his left arm is designed, it can't fit in the hand due to the vestige of what appears to have been the idea of a buttstock hanging off the back, but it fits just fine in the right hand, and the gun that Onslaught came with can be put in the left one. And now he's equipped with an entire armory's worth of weaponry and looks like he's ready to wipe out the Autobots by himself. Even Omega Supreme couldn't withstand this kind of firepower. God, he looks so fucking cool. Another awesome thing about him is his back cannons fit siege blast effects. If this was intentional, amazing. Great job, MMC. This was early into War for Cybertron, so that'd be really good foresight, and just all the gratitude for the extra cross-functionality. If it was an accident, then wow, lucky accident. Another really awesome feature of this is how, one, the head of Onslaught is encased in the helmet of Bruticus, making it feel like Onslaught was really upgraded to be Bruticus, as normally this would be an entirely separate component hidden somewhere in the robot. You know, on the good, non-parts forming combiners. And two, the light-up feature from Onslaught is designed to work through Bruticus' visor. Like I pointed out in the 300 subscriber special, this isn't mind-blowingly complex, this is all mind-blowingly simple, and it's amazing that it's not really been done before or done more often. The rotor blades on the left shoulder do not spin well, so that's a bit of a bummer. They just wobble so hard that all the energy gets sucked out of them if you try to spin it. Man, I have taken an absolutely meandering path to get to the point that I normally start the video on. The look. Oh my god, you guys, this is so gorgeous. It's not 100% accurate to the show. Left shoulder is too tall, chest plate doesn't look like the cockpit of the shuttle, Brawl's tank mode is too realistic, and yeah, thighs and torso are the wrong color, but it still looks like it jumped off the screen. You can nitpick detail after detail, but is there anyone who can truly make the claim that the Zeta or the Ragnaros is even half as accurate as this? Speaking of the Zeta, funny thing about this is how they both do the same thing with the top of Brawl's tank mode. I could sit here and gush about the look of this mode forever, instead I'm going to nitpick it myself. I can't tell if the arms are a little too stubby, the torso is a little short, the legs are a little long, or a mild combination of all three, but whereas with the Earthrise Optimus Prime, that was one figure. This is 5 flawless figures combined, so it gets a little more leeway. And besides, I dare you to look at this and tell me that the proportions bother you. They could have moved the combiner pegs on the arms a little higher, to be honest, but looking at it now, it's the legs. They're just a little too long. You can tell because the hands fall where they should in regards to the tops of the hips. If the arms were a little longer, the fists would fall too far. If you want, you can sacrifice the ankle posability to get them a little more proportionate. And it's kind of amazing how little it actually changes and how big the difference is. But the length doesn't really bother me, so I'm gonna keep the ankle articulation, thank you very much. The last thing I want to bring up is the surface detailing. It's both subtle and effective. Some companies try to replicate the show by stripping the figure of all detail, and then Hasbro likes to obliterate every square inch of the figure with sculpting. This strikes a nice balance between the two, making it both look like it's straight out of the show and like a real object from our plane of existence. Posability on this guy is incredibly good. The head's got more than average tilt up, which you can fake even further by opening it. Not much down, but it also spins 360. And now would be a good time to talk about the look of it. Very simple, very nice, I love it. It's quite Bruticus, though frankly even more plain. Back to posability. The cannons articulate, letting them aim forward, behind, left, or right, even down and back. Top tier functionality out of these. Arms are a little odd. Much like the 86 Hot Rod, they can't bend straight out, they have to hinge up and over his shoulder, and it's one of the few actual problems I have with the whole figure. Honestly, it's not even that bad of a problem, it's just less than ideal. He's got plenty deep elbows, though more so on the Vortex arm than the Blastoff. With Blastoff, you've got to start opening up panels, and you can do some stuff to trick it, but it's never quite as deep, and it has other problems as well, so the unevenness of that is probably the biggest bummer on the whole figure. But once we are done worrying about that, it's basically all smiles all the way down. Hands are fully articulated, not as much as some others, and he's got strange thumbs, but when something's already great, can you really complain that it's not perfect? Also, name one other combiner that has an ab crunch. Hell to the fuck yeah, he's got an ab crunch, and a deep one at that. Way swivel, 2 of them, really, if you don't do the pointless step of locking these parts together. I don't know why you'd need to, but it's your life and I don't judge. He can't exactly do the can, but he can get his legs all the way out. Knees can pull a 90, but the Brawl leg being heavier, and I think on mine, the ratchets being weaker on this leg, make it hard for it to hold position like that. You can untransform the leg a bunch to get a deeper knee bend if you really need it, and on the Swindle leg, you can basically get it all the way back, but it won't exactly hold on its own like this. Ultimately, this is a combiner that poses significantly better than the average Siege figure. Hell, more than many masterpieces. And there's no parts warming. 0. Get fucked! This thing is amazing. Every time I look at it, it puts a smile on my face. Every time I touch it, I feel joy. This is not just my favorite combiner of all time, but it is the best combiner of all time. As you all know, I am the arbiter of that title. When you sign up to be a critic with the eldritch abomination known as YouTube, you get to choose one thing to become the sole authority on, and I picked what the best is. This is the best combiner ever, and that's not just something I'm throwing out there because I don't like parts forming. Simply put, Masterpiece isn't good enough for this figure. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.